Hello, everyone. I'm Shalika De Silva. On behalf of Samadhi Buddhist Foundation, I'd like to welcome all of you to our month of July Clarity of Mind through Mindfulness session. Actually, some of you may know, already Bhante started a series of Dhamma talk based on the book written by Bhikkhu Bodhi. It is in the Buddha's word. So, going in the same book, Bhante today will be discussing the realization of the three true knowledges. So with great respect, I would like to invite most Venerable Panadure Chandarathana Thero to commence today's session. Theruvan Sarnai Bhante.
Venerable Sarnai Shalika. So as you said, we are going to continue the book. But anyway, I thought of first of all making a little meditation session first, because after the book discussion, then immediately we can get on to the discussion. And so we'll change the little order. So we'll start with the guided sitting, and then we'll get on to the book presentation.
Sure.
So may you all sit in a comfortable way for a guided sitting session. Relax yourself. And you can keep your head straight. Neck straight, shoulders at a relaxed position. And keeping your upper half of the body also straight, but not rigid. Now you can gently close your eyes. So we are trying to establish mindfulness in the present moment. So currently we are using the sitting posture. So recognize the sitting posture. It is quite stable and it is sitting. You are not lying down, you are not walking, you are not standing. Rather, you are sitting. Come back to yourself. Be with yourself. And calm down. Allow the mind to settle in the body. Associate the body. So basically, first of all, developing the body awareness, recognizing the posture, and again returning back to the posture. The mind might wander maybe towards various past memories, but you are not encouraging that. Slowly bringing your attention back to the posture. Your mind again might drift towards the future, but we are not encouraging it. Bring it back and establishing mindfulness in the posture. So this experience is quite ordinary experience. There is nothing surprising there. A very simple, ordinary experience. And we are trying to be with it. And as you are more and more establish mindfulness within the body, probably you can recognize some subtle processes. Maybe the breathing process, maybe rising and falling process, blood circulation, heart vibration, various things you can recognize. And probably you can recognize certain sensations in your body. Say your eyes are gently closed and there could be a subtle sensation there. Lips are gently touching, a soft sensation there. And there is no any tension in your face. You're not thinking any particular problem. No wrinkles on your forehead. And you can have a slight smile. Keeping the head straight, neck straight, shoulders are relaxed, arms resting on your lap, and there is no any tension in your arms. And clothes are touching the body. At certain places, it may be a little tight. At certain other places, it may be merely a rubbing sensation, touching sensation. So you are more and more being with you and trying to understand these ordinary subtle sensations. As you are more and more refine your attention, say you understood the rising and falling, you are able to keep your attention on the complete cycle. How rising begins, how it comes to the middle, and how it ends. And just before the beginning of the falling, there is a little gap. Beginning of the falling, middle, end, and again there is a little gap just before the beginning of next rising. So there is no hurry. So we are simply keeping our attention on this rising and falling in a more gentle, joyful manner. If you like, you can continue rising and falling because it will lead to elements meditation, or else we can now shift our attention to the breathing process. We'll keep our attention at the nostril and try to recognize in-breath and out-breath. It's quite similar. So we are trying to understand the beginning of in-breath, the middle, the end, and then there may be a gap before the out-breath, the beginning of out-breath, middle, end. Again, there is a gap just before the in-breath. We are closely examining the whole process in a more gentle, joyful manner. Now, purposely, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. Settle yourself and start watching the breathing carefully. So if you are able to establish mindfulness properly on breathing, you can try to examine some subtle aspects of breathing, like from which nostril the in-breath happens, from which nostril the out breath happens, and maybe whether in breath is warm or cool, whether out breath is warm or cool. So the whole subtle sensations related to the breathing, now you are trying to examine. Keeping the mind very quiet, not thinking, just a mindful, quiet examination. So if you want to shift to some other meditation, you can shift now. Else you can continue with mindful breathing. Or if you want to practice elements meditation, you can do so. Or mindfulness on feelings or about the mind, you can continue. Or if you are capable of keeping the mind unattached without an object, you can turn into that. So we are going to start the Dhamma session, the Dhamma talk. Today, actually, as Shalika mentioned, I am going to continue the book compiled by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. And there he has selected certain suttas explaining the Buddha's teaching at different stages. Now, he has used one interesting sutta called Mahasacchaka Sutta to explain how Buddha has gone through various struggle before his enlightenment, and particularly how he has gone through the self-mortification. And this actually was revealed when one naked ascetic called Satchaka coming and trying to argue with the Buddha. So he has to explain what kind of a practice that he has gone through. Now, the whole thing happens at one occasion when Buddha was dwelling at Vesali, and it's called the hall with the peak roofed. And so while the Buddha was there, so Satchaka is approaching that place. Actually, Buddha almost like to leave the place, but Venerable Ananda has noticed that Satchaka is arriving, and so he is inviting the Buddha to stay for a while in order to meet Satchaka. Because out of compassion for Satchaka, now Venerable Ananda is inviting the Buddha, okay, Bhante, please don't go. Now Satchaka is coming. Please try to spend some time for him. Then Buddha stayed for a while, and then Satchaka came and he started asking various questions. Actually, Satchaka is a very well-known debater. So he is going from one person to another person, or we can say from one teacher to another teacher, asking various questions and trying to defeat them through various logics. Now he's coming to the Buddha also with such a mind to defeat the Buddha by introducing various dogmatic issues or dogmatic ideas, or finding a fault in the Buddha or with the monks. So that's the mindset of the Buddha, of the Satchaka. So he wants to find fault and then refute the Buddha's teaching. Now, so once he approached there, and basically he is talking about the development of the body and the mind. Now here, development of the body does not really mean that we are strengthening the body, our body muscles. Rather, the development of the body here represents the vipassana. The mind represents the samatha. Now, so he's saying that the other ascetics, since they are not properly developed the body and the mind, so they can't maintain the body and the mind in a more balanced, equanimous way. So he's basically charging the Buddha, telling that you and the disciples are very similar. Now Buddha has to explain, so how he has explained his teaching to avoid that kind of a wavering in the mind by going through this body practice as well as the mind practice. Now, the Buddha's teaching also involves vipassana and the samatha, or samatha and vipassana. So, where the two aspects are very much like targeted. In one sense, we are trying to calm down the hindrances, and then actually we are further recognizing the influxes, certain latent tendencies which are more subtle, and trying to remove them as a result of the vipassana practice. Now, one interesting point highlighted in this sutta is where Buddha is showing various ascetic practices that he has gone through, which are really a kind of a torture to the body. So he's going through some very extreme type of bodily pains, but still mind is pleasant. Mind is not get on to any anger. He is able to calm down the mind. And even though his body is going through painful feelings, his mind remains calm. So this is a very, very important aspect of the Dhamma. So assume that you are going through some sort of a bodily pain. Say you are suffering from a particular sickness. Now, when the body suffering is there, are we able to maintain the mind without a trouble? Now, this is difficult for a person who is not developed in the vipassana, because he's unable to, actually, this is difficult for one who is not developed in samatha, because samatha practice actually even helps even to let go of the bodily pain and to have the mind in a more serene way. Now, this is a kind of an obvious point, Say, for example, you are practicing samatha meditation, and at the beginning, you may feel the body, and you might even feel various bodily pains, aches, etc., because you feel the body. But as you continue your practice, you know that as the concentration builds up, easily, so this little pains start disappearing. It is not really they disappear, but rather your mind get concentrated. So mind only get concentrated when the body and the mind become more calm, tranquil. So one interesting point is there may be certain bodily pains available, but your attention is not drawn to them. You may be looking at something else. Say, for example, if you are practicing Anapanasati and there may be a nimitta and you are looking at that and you are very much like fully concentrated onto that. So the body almost like disappeared. The body almost like you can't feel. You feel like floating completely with the breathing practice and the body has almost like disappeared. So whatever the bodily pains, aches, etc., you can now bear because you are well absorbed to this some other type of meditation. But the other side is also there. Assume that you are going through a pleasurable feeling. Now, when pleasurable feelings are there, easily you may get attracted to that. You start thinking about it, and you get sort of proliferating about it, wishing for that. So the mind get fully involved. You can't keep the mind quiet when the body is going through some pleasurable feelings. Now, this is because of not development of the vipassana. So you haven't seen the true nature of the feelings. So as a result of that, what happens whenever there are pleasant or pleasurable bodily feelings, easily mind get attracted to that. You start desiring them. Ultimately, you start clinging to them, attached to them, grasping them, and you become someone and fully infatuated in that kind of situation. So completely tangled in that situation. Now you may be going through various kinds of thinking, imaginations, etc., etc., because you don't know how to handle the mind and you don't know the true nature of the feelings. But if you are able to understand the true nature of the feelings, advantage is you are not attaching to any of these pleasurable feelings. You are able to maintain the mind in a detached manner. Now, this is where the advantage of vipassana when you are going through the pleasurable feelings. So we need to understand these two cases and how certain bodily pains are in a way tangling us and ultimately we are suffering through the mind. And similarly, how pleasurable feelings are again tangling us, encouraging us to again think and ultimately proliferate, go through some sensual gratification, not being able to keep the mind at a peaceful state, equanimous state. So actually, in order to explain this whole scenario, Buddha is taking various ascetic practices that he has gone through. Now, for example, he's explaining in this Mahasatchaka Sutta some extreme kind of practices. Because you know that it is not that Buddha immediately found the middle path. Rather, he understood about the traditional self-mortification, Attakila Matani Yoga. So that was the very much accepted practice during the Buddha's time, before the Buddha. So this is what people were thinking as the path to liberation. So many were going through such ascetic practices, torturing their body and giving a lot of painful experiences. And even 5 ascetics are helping the Buddha, or rather to the Bodhisattva, to continue his practices. You know that the Pasvaga Panchavaggiya Bhikkhu, the 5 ascetics, actually they were attending the Buddha, this Bodhisattva, because he is striving now. He's going through self-mortification. And various practices are there, Buddha explained in this Mahasatchaka Sutta. Let me summarize few of them. So one practice is avoiding breathing. So he purposely trying to avoid breathing. So he stopped breathing through the nose and the mouth. And then extreme pain starts arising. And he further want to stop it. then further extreme pains arising. So likewise, this type of non-breathing type of torture in the body has caused a lot of pain in the bodhisattva's body. But even though he is going through that, so Buddha said the mind remained calm. So that's the interesting part. So he has this capacity because he has certain samatha practice. So he still has certain this kind of a capacity even before he became the Buddha. Now, another practice is that he avoided eating. He has reduced the food what he has taking, and slowly he has abandoned food, and ultimately he become very lean, and even he fall down. So all these kind of situations have happened, but still, even though these bodily pains are there, he said that he was capable of maintaining the mind calm. He didn't get agitated. Now, on the other hand, later he understood, okay, this self-mortification is not the path. Atthakale Matani Yoga is not the path. And while I was living at my father's field, paddy field, as a young child, I have entered the first jhana in a more serene way. Should be that is the path. So he is actually turning his attention to the jhana, and now he started practicing jhana. Now he started practicing, taking some food again. Then those 5 ascetics, they thought, okay, now Samana Gautama is getting to the luxurious way of life again. So they left the Bodhisattva. Now the Bodhisattva started practicing jhana. And jhanic experiences are so lovable, so blissful. And now, so the Buddha is explaining to the Satchaka that now I am going through various different kinds of blissful experiences. But interestingly, my mind is not attached to that. I'm not getting involved with that. I can easily calm down the mind after this kind of an absorption. So it's not fully involved in there. Now, typically what happens is when another person is practicing samatha, maybe jhana, so he get absorbed to that, and not knowing the limit, he might even get overwhelmed by that. But here the bodhisattva is capable of maintaining kind of a balance. And then now he is explaining actually 3 similes that which is later he understood with respect to his practice. Now he understood, okay, there is a wet sappy wood in water. Now he is asking a question from Satchaka. Suppose that there is a wet sappy wood which is already in water. Can you kindle fire using that? Then Satchaka is saying, of course, Bhante, it is not possible. Why? Because the wood is also sappy, and where it is also watery. So on such condition, you can't kindle fire. And then Buddha is asking giving another simile. How if this little wood is taken to a dry land, but still it is with some watery, sappy wood? Can you kindle fire? Still not possible, because even though it is right now in a dry land, but it is not still a dry wood. The third simile is where Buddha is talking about, assume that you now have a dry sapless wood and it is also kept in the dry land. Then you can easily kindle fire. Now with this kind of a simile, what Buddha wants to highlight is where when someone is engaged with bodily sensual gratification, which is very much like you are in the water, you are in the mud. So you don't have any restraint, you are completely with sensual gratification. At the same time, your mind also going through various sensual desires, infatuation, affection, thirst for various sense gratification. So all these are very much similar to the wet sappy wood. So the point highlighted here is that on such cases, So you are unable to attain enlightenment. You are unable to attain any realization. In one sense, you are already engaged with some sensual gratification through the body, through the senses. On the other hand, mind is also entirely infatuated with various pleasures, various, say, defilements, various desires. So you are unable to realize anything. The second case is, suppose that you are now stop all the various sensual pleasures that you are going through. Any kind of a bodily sense gratification, you stop. Say you observe 8 precepts. Now you avoid any kind of a sense gratification. And you might even spend a celibate life. But still, your mind is infatuated, your mind is very much affected by sensual desires. So your hindrances are not abandoned, sensual desires are still operating. So as a result of that, still the enlightenment is not possible. That is the second case. Like a wet sappy wood kept on a dry land is unable to kindle fire. So the last case is the important one, where not only that you have withdrawn from sense gratification. So now you are maintaining certain amount of moral standard and maintaining a fair amount of deprivation from this sense gratification. So you understood its nature. At least for temporary time, you are able to maintain a kind of a moral life, maybe even a celibate life. And not only that, now you are trying to keep the mind free from any kind of a sensual desire. Almost like you have practiced samatha or another type of meditation where now you keep the mind free from any sense desires, any kind of fever for sensual pleasures. Now you are not burning with such kind of a desire. So it is very much like, it's like a dry sapless wood. Now both cases are satisfied. So internally, mentally, also you are fairly pure. And similarly, your body, you are not further continuing with any kind of a gratification. Rather, you are maintaining a moral code, moral standard. So this is the situation that Buddha encourages here. So these are the similes that he is explaining to Satchaka. Okay, we need to maintain this sort of a situation. Then only one has the potential to get enlightened. One has the potential to get realized the Dhamma. And he's telling to Satchaka that there are certain ascetics, there are certain Brahmins. Actually, while they are engaged with sense gratification and again tormented with various sensual desires, they're still trying to get enlightened, but it is not possible. Similarly, there are certain other Brahmins who have withdrawn from sense gratification, but still promote sensual desires in their mind. They are thinking, there are various obsessive thoughts are going on with respect to sense desires. So they are still unable to get enlightened. But the best case is where you have withdrawn from sense gratification and again, you are able to maintain a mind free from any infatuation, free from any kind of a favor, any sensual desire, and then you are having such a potential to get enlightened. So these are interestingly Buddha highlights to Satchaka, and he again and again emphasized while he is going through either the self-torturing, self-tormenting kind of a practices, he was able to maintain calmness. At the same time, once he given up that path and practices certain jhanic experiences, still he was able to maintain the mind uninvolved. And eventually he realized the middle path. So the middle path is basically discarding this self-mortification and self-indulgence. So here self-indulgence is not the jhana, rather self-indulgence here means the kama sukhallikana yoga, sense gratification part. So you have to abandon the sense gratification. Also you have to abandon the self-mortification. And now you have to maintain mindfulness and other spiritual faculties in a proper balance, and then only you are getting to a path which has the potential to take you to another level. Now, after Satchaka was fairly convinced about the Buddha's explanation, now he actually want to kind of look down the Buddha by another little point. So he has heard that once Buddha has had a nap during the midday. And now he is pointing out to the Buddha, Bhante, do you remember any time that you had a sleep during the daytime? And Buddha said, yes, once in a while, a long time ago, I was at this particular place and I was mindfully sleeping for a while. And then actually Satchaka want to refute the Buddha, disparage the Buddha. And he's saying, okay, this is the delusion of the mind. Some people are saying, okay, this is the deluded nature of the mind. So he's now looking down the Buddha. And then actually Buddha explaining what is delusion. So it is not that while you are sleeping, you are becoming completely deluded. Rather, the delusion is happening because of the defilements. So once the mind is completely purified by delusion in the sense the defilements, raga, dosa, moha, lust, hatred, and delusion. So you can have a nap, you can have a sleep, but that is not anymore a kind of a deluded state. Say, for example, the Buddha and the Arahants, they may have a sleep, but that is for the kind of a bodily rest and refreshing the body. So it is required by the body. So you are giving that little break to the body, but the mind is already purified. So the Buddha is explaining this point to Satchaka, telling that even though he had a nap during the daytime, you can't say that he is a deluded state. He went through a deluded state because he's already purified his mind. And since the body has required that kind of a rest at that moment, so I had to give it. I have taken a rest. And then basically it is not a deluded state. Probably you can remember at another occasion, Buddha was teaching the Sakyans when they were offering the Nigrodharama, and he had a real back pain. So while preaching, now Venerable Ananda was next to him, and then Buddha invites Venerable Ananda to continue the preaching because he wants to take a little break. So Venerable Ananda prepared the seat, he put the double robe, and Buddha mindfully just lie down there, and had a little break. So these are certain cases that we can understand that Buddha has shown the human nature. Actually, this body is very fragile. This body is going through various aches, pains, and sometimes it needs certain rest. And even though Buddha is an Arahant and the other Arahants are there, so they have completely avoided any kind of a sleep, but when it is necessary, they slept mindfully. Not completely deluded way, but mindfully they have slept. When it is necessary, they can awake. So this kind of a capacity was there. Now Buddha mentioned that also to Satchaka. So later Satchaka understood it. Now after explaining that, so actually Satchaka understood the thing and he praised the Buddha. He accepted what Buddha has mentioned and he left. Basically, this Satchaka was unable to realize any Dhamma during that life. But the commentary mentioned later, actually he was reborn in Sri Lanka and he became the Kala Buddha Rakkita. So probably you might have heard about Venerable Kala Buddha Rakkita, who actually has given a very well known discourse called Kalakarama Sutta on a night or on a kind of completely dark day where there is no moon at all. And that has become one of the very interesting incident which has happened in Sri Lanka. So this Venerable Kala Buddha Rakkhita, according to the commentary, is in the previous life, it is the Satchaka. Now, all the information, all the teachings that Buddha has given to Satchaka, even though it hasn't made any realization in him in that life, anyway, it was helpful for him in the other life. That is, as a monk, as a Kala Buddha Rakkhita, so he is really appreciating the Buddha's qualities in a very profound way. Kalakarama Sutta actually explains Buddha's qualities in a very, very profound way, in a very deep way. And when Kala Buddha Rakkhita was explaining that deeply, beautifully to the crowd, and even the king came and he was listening to that sermon while standing. To that much, he was explaining it to the other crowd. So you can see, actually, we can't say that whatever the Dhamma that we are listening today is not helpful, or it will be basically not giving fruits immediately. But these teachings might have the potential even to give certain results in the future. Now, in summary, basically in this sutta, so highlights that the development of the Vipassana and the Samatha are both necessary. And in the teaching, it is further explained that Buddha has realized the three knowledges. So those three knowledges are related to the past lives, the Pubbē Nivāsānussati Jnana. The second one is actually about knowing others, their birth, how they are, as a result of their unwholesome activities, how they are born into an unfortunate situation. Because of their wholesome activities, how they are born to a pleasurable, a pleasant, a favorable situation. So what we call the Dibba Chakku. And the last one is called the Asavakkaya Jnana, where he was able to understand how to abandon all the influxes, all the defilements. So these three knowledges are highlighted in this sutta, and Buddha was able to realize these things only when he has approached the middle path. Is developing samatha, vipassana, maintaining the proper balance, then only these three realizations have happened. These three knowledges have happened. So this middle way, this middle path is the path to enlightenment, path to realization, basically abandoning the self-mortification and abandoning any kind of self-gratification, sense gratification, and maintaining a well-balanced, mindful state of mind. And on the other hand, as I already mentioned, so abandoning sensual pleasures, sense gratification is in a way a must. Because sometimes it's difficult for us to understand immediately how it relates. Because if you are again and again going through some sense gratification, so it may be detrimental to our practice. So for you to have a completely infatuated mind, so you have to be a fairly deluded person. But if you are maintaining a fairly wise state of mind, you are very much like unable to go through this kind of a sense gratification, because it's kind of a torture to the senses. It may be a kind of going back to your old habits, promoting the old habits, but rather in the Vipassana practice, you are more and more trying to purify the mind, free the mind from any defilement. So promoting the defilements through sense gratification is not something encouraged. So this is what actually I like to share with you today from this Mahasacchaka Sutta. And interesting point is, so how Buddha is talking about those three similes using the wet sappy wood and the dry land or the wetland. And that simile side, we can actually have some relationship to our own practice. On the other hand, how Buddha was capable of maintaining the mind unattached or undisturbed, even when the body is going through utter suffering, a severe type of pain, still the mind is maintaining a kind of a balanced state. So that is very, very interesting. And on the other hand, when mind is going through some pleasurable state, still you are not attached to it. You are not very much deluded by that. That is the other side, which particularly come as a result of the vipassana. So you are able to maintain an equanimous mind, a balanced mind, an even mind, even when body or the mind is going through kind of pleasurable pleasant states, pleasant feelings. So you are very much like maintaining a well-balanced, stable mind, irrespective of whether you are going through painful feelings or pleasurable feelings. So this is actually something that we need to understand and to get some guidance from this teaching. And with that, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Now I like to open the session for questions. So it seems there are no questions.
Avsarai Bante, I have a question.
Yeah.
First, I was practicing samatha. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
got the nimittas, and once I got experience with that, the main nimitta absorbing as well. This is like
Mm-hmm.
10 years back. And then I started doing satipatthana with the practice of lots of walking meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been like couple of years that I have that upeksha state, like constantly it's there, and an
Mm-hmm.
automatic process of my whole body is like vibrations, and then even I can see the breath like a normal anapanasati. Whether I meditate or not, it's like whether I'm at home or in a retreat, my mind automatically get attracts to my body because of this experience. I mean, because of these vibrations and the breath I could see. So
Mm-hmm.
my question is that, like, after I started practicing Satipatthana, I sometimes get the light like an emitter, but I could never do that um, um
Absorption.
samatha uh, practice, because
Mm-hmm.
now it's an automatic process has started, and I can't leave the body, because in order to go to that nimitta stages, the body needs to be disappeared. But now
Mm-hmm.
body is so active that it automatically prevents from going into that stages. But I'm not trying to go into that stages, because I've noticed that there's a automatic process is happening at the moment where I cannot do anything much. But my question is like, uh, when you start practicing satipatthana, so is there like you cannot go back to the samatha nimittas or that stages? It is just I'm curious that I have
Mm-hmm.
that question, or it is really totally preventing from going into samatha stages.
Mm-hmm. So I can't say that you are completely unable to get into that, but the point is um, now in the in the vipassana practice, we are not trying to register any kind of samatha absorptions in the mind. Rather, we are trying to sort of release the mind. So as you are practicing now vipassana using the body, going through some elements meditation or maybe Vedananupassana, but currently you are in a stage where you are trying to develop the potential, you are develop the momentum of wisdom, but there may be instances later that the mind get released from everything. Don't know whether you have gone through such experiences. Say you are observing various phenomena, bodily phenomena, how they are rising and passing away, rising and passing away again and again. And there could be instances that all that has almost like disappeared, everything has stopped, and your mind become quite spacious and no thoughts, and it's a kind of a peaceful state. So now this is actually a result of vipassana, and this is also has the qualities of the jhana, but it is not a typical jhana where you get absorbed. So typically in absorptions in the jhana, our mind get somewhat colored, somewhat conditioned, and there is an object. Even though it is subtle, there is still an object, and you become that. You get fully absorbed with that, and that's why it is become very much a blissful experience. But in vipassana, you have nothing to get absorbed, basically. So your mind get fairly expanded, and no object and no attachment. It's a kind of an expanded state of mind, a completely open state of mind, and you are experiencing it without an object. So body almost has disappeared, or even though the body is there, your mind is not interested about it. And there may be sights, sounds, smells, you are not interested about it. So mind has the capacity to maintain its seclusion, even amidst all these different disturbances. So mind has found a kind of a balance by improving its wisdom, because it understood all these conditioned phenomena are impermanent, they are transient, they may not provide me satisfaction, and they are not governable, they are not under my control, and internally or intrinsically they don't have any kind of a substance, any core, any essence. So basically that anicca dukkha anatta, once you thoroughly understood, so the mind starts giving up everything. So the vipassana samadhi is promoting that side. So you keep the mind completely unattached, liberated in a sense, maybe temporarily, but not getting involved with anything at all. Now, this and the previous samatha jhana has a significant difference. Now, here there is no object. There, in the samatha practice, there is an object. Here, there is no any kind of absorption as such. You become that kind of a thing. Rather, in the samatha practice, you get absorbed to that. You get immersed in that. But here in the vipassana, you keep your mind very fairly lighter, in the sense more soft, more gentle, more refined kind of a state. It is not, we can't say it's similar to the samatha absorption, because it's not an intense kind of a samadhi. There may be intense kind of vipassana samadhis as well, but here what I am talking is in point with respect to wisdom side. So you may still achieve kind of a samadhi, and you don't need extreme depth. Depth in the sense, in the samatha samadhi also, we can talk about different depths. One may be achieving a samatha samadhi with some shallow level. Another one may achieve it at a very deeper level. A deep absorption is there. So when we are talking a samadhi, we can, like that, we can talk about certain depth of the samadhi as well. That's another aspect of the samadhi. So what I'm talking here, highlighting here, is that in vipassana, so you can achieve vipassana samadhi even when there are so many other distractions are there. You are not getting distracted, because mind has given up everything by seeing their true nature. So hope you understand the difference between the two categories, two sides. So when someone is practicing vipassana, or we can say satipatthana, so encouragement is to recognize these defilements, or to recognize the true nature of various phenomena, understand their true nature, so that mind is not getting attached to them, attracted to them.
Yes, Bante, I got some peaceful stages with Satipatthana as well. But
Right.
sometimes when the Satipatthana goes like really deep. It's not really, maybe I'm not really sitting and meditating, just like relaxing. And when it's go deeper, sometimes when you don't have when you lose the total kind of belonging, I sometimes get scared. It got disturbed and I wake up, and that has happened. Like when it goes deep, I get scared.
No, that's the point. Now, basically, that is the place actually the Sakkaya Ditthi is thoroughly attacked. In order for you to give up the whole thing, it's kind of a challenge. Now, say, typically our mind holds on to something. Our mind established on something, and once we lose that establishment, once we lose our holding, so we get trembled, because assume that you are a person. I am here. I want to establish here. So I am fully dependent on something. Then I manifesting as a person, when I'm losing my footing, when I'm losing my establishment, so I get trembled. But assume that through your practice, you understand there is no such person. So what is available is kind of a changing process, arising and passing away process is there. It's utterly impermanent, utterly transient. So there is no any inner core, there is no person, there is no being, there is no I. So you get on to the non-self type of understanding. So when you are having such kind of a backing, such kind of a, say, strength coming through wisdom, then you can easily give up. So assume that you are going through Vipassana practice. So it is, as you said, at certain stage, you have to give up the whole thing, and you give up. Not being afraid, because there is no one to protect. Something like that. So it seems like you are arriving there, but still unable to spend enough time there. So try to spend more time there without any attachment, without any object, without any establishment. So the mind still operates, but there is no person. There is no being as such. But the conditions are there. It will continue, but it doesn't need a person to have.
Okay, Bante. Yeah, the thing is that like sometimes I go to retreats and all, but those kind of stages doesn't arrive like in retreats or something. Sometimes it's at home that I can't sometimes support it to go on meditating, or then you have to go to work and things like that, Bante. It's like it's all those meditations sometimes totally out of control. That happens sometimes in a time that I am not expecting. Like we expect, or if you go to a retreat, that this will happen, but things happen very suddenly, kind of a thing. I get it, Bante. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be true, because now, say for example, you are simply going in a train. So you have nothing to do. Simply you are looking around, and say there is nothing much to enjoy also. Say you are simply looking at a field or open sky, and there is no much disturbance. Assume that there are no many passengers in your place, and you have a kind of a seclusion to the mind. It is not agitated. There are no much distracting thoughts. There are no much outside distractions, and you are also in a kind of a balance, and you are not striving either. Now this kind of a, say, clarity of the mind, this kind of peace of the mind may be easily possible. So that's why sometimes when we are over striving, it may not happen. If you are exerting too much effort, it may not happen. But the moment you have given up things and you are in a very calm, relaxed mood, it automatically happens. So what you are telling is very, very true.
Okay, Bante. Lots of merit to you. Thank you. Thero and
Yeah.
Saranai.
Yeah, there was Sanai. Anything happened to you, Shalika? Okay, Joseph is there.
Joseph, you can present your question.
Thank you, Shalika. Hello, Bante.
Yes.
Hello. I was having an experience today
Right.
where I started to notice, where I was understanding thought was sort of appearing as if it was like just a reflection of something that was actually happening unconsciously, as if the thinking patterns and just the say I was gonna go and eat. I was gonna go and make my lunch. I realized how everything just kind of happened. Going to the kitchen, getting the food, putting the food out, sitting down, the whole eating, how I was eating the food. I didn't have to think about eating the food. It was all just happening. There would be little thoughts appearing. And it seemed that the whole process, the physical process, but also like the physical process, I was kind of aware of it happening in the same way it seemed that the mental processes, I was just aware that they were happening, but they kind of felt like it was just a reflection of what was happening, as opposed to I was thinking these thoughts. I had some kind of, I was somehow controlling these thoughts, and because I wanted to think these thoughts, that's why they were happening. It was just like when I was chewing the food, I realized the way that my tongue happened to move that piece of lettuce over to that side of the mouth. I didn't think about that. My body did it because it was the right thing to do in order to properly chew the lettuce. And so my mind was also kind of just operating. There were some thoughts happening, but it was almost as if I didn't have privy to the entire process of thinking. It was only the parts that came up that were the most obvious, and they were kind of appearing like a reflection. And that like the analogy that I was thinking about is, we see the rainbow after the storm, and it can kind of appear that the rainbow causes the storm to end, but there's the rainbow appears because of various meteorological processes. It's kind of caused by the weather, but the rainbow doesn't affect the weather. Kind of like the thoughts I was having were caused by this internal thinking, but the thoughts that I could perceive I didn't feel were causing anything. They were just a reflection. So those are some thoughts I'd like to present and see what you thought of that.
So basically, you are practically, say for example, you are chewing the food, practically you are doing it, but the mind is merely observing it without any thoughts. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So that is the interesting area actually we need to navigate. So what we were doing while body is eating, while we are eating, basically, we may be planning, we may be thinking something else, completely distracted, or we may be even enjoying it too much. We are indulging in it. So these are the situations what we used to do.
Yes.
So this is the typical way that people are eating, for example. But I mean, a situation like you have explained, where the body is eating, the eating process going on, which is a very normal, ordinary kind of a process, we can eat. We don't need to think. Keep the mind quiet while the body is eating.
Yes.
So
yes. And it's amazing how
amazing,
good the body is at chewing food. I mean, it's just amazing, like the way the saliva comes out, the way the tongue moves everything around. It's a fairly complex mechanical process, chewing the food, and it's all happening super smooth.
Right. Now, interestingly, shall I ask a question? Now,
yes.
Now, are you helping the body to digest the food, or the body knows how to digest the food?
I would say I could pay attention to go for a little bit of a walk after I've eaten, which maybe helps. For example, if I was to do a strenuous activity, I might get a cramp or
Right.
something. But otherwise, I was thinking the food, I forget about the food. I can kind of feel, I feel maybe a kind of energy. I feel energized maybe a little bit, and I can attribute that that energy is coming from the food being digested, and that the energy is going into my body. I can kind of, if I pay attention, I can kind of feel that. And then even, you know, I've gone so far as to think the next day when I'm going to the toilet, there is the food coming out. Like this is the final end of that whole process, which started with me going to the kitchen and, you know, putting it all together. This is the final, this is it. This is where the end, the cessation happens.
Correct. So that is basically, so that whole process is actually, we don't need to interrupt, we don't need to interfere. So the body knows how to digest it. What is the amount of acid it is required for digestion? What's the amount of, you know, whatever the circulation, so which is happening at the stomach or intestines, all that is a huge process actually going on. And the body knows how to do it. We don't need to interrupt it. We don't need to, you know, ask it to do this now, do this, that. So we are completely out of control. So the body knows how to do it. So similarly, so when you are used to do something, like you mentioned, the eating. So we were eating for a long time now. Now body knows how to do it also.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to get interrupt. You don't need to intervene. You can, you know, rest. You can take a rest. So basically mind remain restful, no thinking, no involvement, no engagement, but body knows how to eat. So that's why now, assume that's another, if we take another simple task, like say you want to sweep the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to think. I mean, you can simply see where the garbage is, where you need to sweep. And while keeping the mind quiet, you can sweep the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So likewise, if we are trying to explore the areas where we can keep the mind quiet,
Mm-hmm.
because the very, you know, that it is not a kind of a brainy activity. It doesn't require much kind of thinking at all, because we know what to do. It's a very simple task. And on such cases, actually, we can keep the mind at a restful state.
Do you
So
think
these
it's
are very,
do you think it's
yeah.
possible, Bhante, to keep the mind? Do you like, even when we're, say, facing maybe not a completely new task where we really, you know, obviously need to read about it, learn about it, think about it, but maybe a task that's, say, a little bit more like complex, would you say that even then we don't need to think about it, that it kind of will just happen, that, and that any thinking that is happening is not actually guiding the process, that the thinking that appears in our mind is not guiding the process, just a reflection of a decision that's been made, just the way that my tongue moved the food around, that my sort of brain decided to do it in this way, and I'm just kind of getting like an after image of that. I guess that's what I'm suggesting. What do you think of that?
Yeah, actually, that's a kind of a capacity that we are in a way developing. So in this very Satchaka Sutta, so Buddha explained to Satchaka that even though he preach, even though he talk, so there is no any kind of say aftermath going on. Say after the Buddha's teaching, after his preaching, there is no any inner chatter formulated as a result of the preaching. Now, say, for example, you are making a lecture at your university. And once you've done that, can you keep the mind completely quiet?
No.
Are you going through any kind of a post-mortem? Okay, I did it really well. They were interested, they were talking, they were disturbing, or I was able to impress them by my speech, etc., etc. Or are you able to completely leave it aside and keep the mind quiet?
No, I can't. I noticed that for sure. That everything exactly the way you mentioned. Yeah, definitely. It's just It's just happening. But
I see.
and I don't feel that I'm indulging in it, in the sense that I'm not adding to it. I don't feel that I'm latching onto it, but it's definitely it's kind of like pouring. It's kind of just flowing out. I'm watching that, as you say, kind of post-mortem analysis
Yeah.
take place, getting excited about certain things, mostly focusing on whatever small, one minor little negative thing happened,
Exactly.
taking much more prominence, and the things that were really good, quickly bypassing those things, and just focusing on the one thing that was
Yeah, whatever the mistakes that we did, so they come to the, they become highlighted, and we start regretting about them, and we may be blaming ourselves, but not for not performing really well, not being able to impress others. I should have mentioned like this better. So likewise, various alternatives, they are talking again and again. So our mind is unable to keep quiet, maybe after this kind of a situation. But the interesting point with the Buddha, he's explaining at the Satchaka Sutta, is that after a preaching, his mind is quiet.
Right.
So we can see that what a kind of a silence that he's having.
Yeah.
But still he can talk. He has preached a lot of Dhamma. So he has make use of the capacity that his mind is having, but still able to maintain silence when it is not necessary to think.
And that would be because his mind is no longer polluted by the
Exactly.
tanha, right? And
Yes.
that would be the thing which is causing that.
And the other hand, self-view and the self-view. Now, we being agitated because of the self-view. Now, say for example, now I am conducting this program. Now, after the program, if I am thinking, okay, did it properly, or did I made a mistake while I am talking in English? Did I make a mistake, or am I talking to Joseph? Did a mistake? So we may have a self-image. So I am trying to protect my self-image. I am trying to highlight my self-image.
Yeah.
Guard my self-image. So this self-image matters really. But Buddha, on the other hand, he doesn't have anything at all. So he has completely realized the Dhamma, no delusion at all. And so he has let go of the whole thing. So things are merely happening. That's all. And he has no regrets. He doesn't have a person to protect.
So I mean, I can see the beauty of that. I mean, you can see why we would want that, because that would be so much better, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
It would just be so much better. So then this self-view, like how to dislodge this self-view, is I find the trickiest one. Is
exactly.
That's the tricky one, because it seems.
What you have explained is such scenario, such example, that the eating process has happened without a self-involvement.
Mm-hmm. So then we would say that there is no self involved in any of the activities that we do.
We can't say actually. When I am operating with a sense of I, then that means I am interrupting. So that means the self-view has arisen. But as you explained, now this little very ordinary activities like eating, maybe sweeping, like that, very simple activities where too much thinking is not necessary at all. So those activities are now simply happening without a self-involvement. So we may start tasting them. That's why you are talking, okay, this kind of situation has happened. So the whole eating process has happened, but there is no any thinking. It has happened really smoothly. Body knows how to eat, how to chew, everything. So it's a very beautifully, it has happened, very successful. I was not there.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's so wonderful to have peace. To have peace, it's such a wonderful thing. We want more of it.
Exactly.
We just want more of it, and I can yeah.
So on
I
the
can
other
see
hand,
where the trouble is, and to try and be more aware of it when it comes up, the image of the self and how that self image is joined into the picture and is starting to sort of get fed, sort of being nurtured. Try to be aware of that. Thank you, Bhante. Much merit to you. Everyone, Sanai.
Bhante, there's a written question. Do you want me to read it?
Okay, sure.
It's from Ananda Manage. Achieving or obtaining jhana means really what, Bhante? Is it mean you enhance your jhana, especially sense of mind? If yes, then my question is, possession of jhana means you enhance jhana, your one or more senses.
I'm a little bit confusing. Anyway, achieving jhana basically means that you arrive that, you accomplish that, you are able to attain jhana. So that is one part of the samatha practice. And enhancing that means so you are able to stay there for a longer time as you wish you can attain that. So that's a kind of mastery of jhana. So you know that even at the jhana practice, so sometimes you are unable to control it. You don't know when you are attaining it, and you don't know how long you are going to attain it. So all these are certainly still variables. But the mastering of jhana, development of jhana means that now you are able to attain jhana as you wish, on your will. And you can stay there as you wish, as long as you wish. And you can emerge from that when you want. So likewise, a type of mastery of jhana is explained with respect to jhana.
Want just adding another question on top of that, basically doing that samatha, when you do samatha bhavana and then you attain all these jhanas, right? In vipassana, do you achieve the same kind of jhana? Because you are just basically watching what's exactly happening right now at the present moment, right? So you cannot stay in in such a state for a long time, because you're seeing a more detail of what's happening. Even if you're getting a pain, you started just watching that pain, and then you started seeing details having tiny details of that pain. So basically you cannot achieve jhana through vipassana.
No, it is possible, Charlika. Now the point is, now you are talking at one level where you are still the investigation level, where you are investigating the feelings. So as you said, the investigation of the feelings require this kind of very, say, subtle level of refinement, and you are understanding how quickly they are rising and passing away. All that is one stage of the practice. Now, as a result of this practice, there is a stage that mind starts letting go things. So now mind doesn't want to get involved with anything at all. Now it has completely let go of the thing, and it has found its seclusion without any object. So there, the complete, say, calmness is there, equanimity is there, complete absence of any of these conditioned phenomena are there. That is somewhat similar to jhana, but as you said, there is no object, by the way. As we already mentioned, there is no object because objects are conditioned phenomena. Now, mind understood, maybe by observing the feelings, it understood its conditioned nature, unsatisfactory nature, the impermanent nature, non-self nature. By observing the body, maybe bodily phenomena, various element characteristics, so the mind has understood, okay, this is also not worthy of attaching, not worthy of holding. Okay, it's looking at the various mental phenomena, maybe thoughts coming and going, various perceptions coming and going. There also it understood, okay, this is also not worthy of attaching. So now what is there to attach? Nothing is there. So when such kind of a understanding is there, now mind start dropping things, leaving them aside, letting them go. So there the mind become animitta, appanihita, sunyata, where no signs are available in the mind now. It's become more spacious. and no desires are available now because nothing is there to desire. And there is no object as such because it is empty, because there is no anything personal, anything belong to a person that is there. So likewise, so in the Vipassana also you are attaining kind of a samadhi. At different levels of samadhis are there. What you have explained is one level, but there is another level where all the objects, the so-called conditioned phenomena are abandoned, let go of, and mind has found its own kind of a solace. It has found its own kind of alternative way of abiding without holding on to anything. You know that in the Satipatthana Sutta, that is what Buddha is highlighting again and again as its result. Anisthitocha viharati, nachakinchi loke upadhyati. So you understood, okay, whatever available in this world is entirely transient, unsatisfactory, non-self. So now you are not wanting to attach to anything in the world. Nachakinchi loke upadhyati. You don't want to grasp anything in the world. And now you remain anisthita, that means unassociated. The mind finds its own kind of a way of living without associating anything.
Yeah, just just want to share one of my experience. Like, I mostly do like a metta meditation. That's like I'm always tend to do it. It's my nature. So when I always start with like, okay, I should do the metta and then I should do anapanasati, the breathing. And then what I do is when I started doing the metta meditation, and I come to like a state that like it's entirely empty, and I basically don't see anything, like I'm just in kind of a space, but I'm feel myself, even like pulses and happening like in my body, various things. I feel that, and but I feel so happy and so relaxed, and then I really don't. I see like I don't want to go back to like my breathing, concentrating on the breathing, because now I'm right in the state, and I'm watching my basically my thoughts. It's basically I go really blank and I don't get any thoughts. Even those are the thoughts. I should not. Now I should stay there, and rather than trying to again getting an object and start concentrating on that. So it's basically I feel my body. I feel my but not heavy, with so light. Basically don't feel that way. But that's a kind of like I state I go, and then so that kind of a thing is not a jhana, right? It's like, but I like, so I see my like see myself, and and it's like a thoughtless, like empty space. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why it's called Cheto Vimutti. They are not typically called as jhana. They are called the opening of the mind, or we can say the freedom of the mind. So you can even achieve it. I mean, you don't need to go to Vipassana to achieve it. You can through metta also you can achieve it. So by metta, you can spread your mind to the whole universe and open up completely. And now the complete liberation of the mind can happen. But the point is still the defilements are there. That's why we have to work on them. You can use this as a ground. You can use this as a reference. So allow it to happen at a shallow level. You are not deeply absorbed to that, so that in case there are thoughts to come, let them come. But you see how transient they are, how they are coming and going, coming and going. Then you understand even the true nature of the thoughts. Let them go, and you don't need to attach to them. So more and more you are observing the mind now. You are not practicing metta, but rather now you are into chittanupassana in a way. So you are simply looking at the mind, how thoughts are coming and going, but you are not attaching to any of them. So the mind maintains its emptiness now. It more becomes more equanimous now. It is not, you are not being overwhelmed by, lovable kind of a state. Rather, you become more equanimous, more balanced. So your more happy state now change into more equanimous state.
Yeah. I have actually felt that, because I sometimes when I'm doing the metta, like I feel so happy, and because when you spread the metta for everybody, like in the whole world, no matter what they are, and so it's like you feel like such a feeling. It's so relaxed and calm, but it's so happy. I feel so happy, and then later on I feel that when I'm starting observing my thoughts, it's become, like as you said, come to an equanimity. So
Exactly. So that is more mature. That is more mature than, that happiness is a conditioned thing, that it may vary. But as you are slowly navigating into the area where you don't need anything to maintain, so you are simply maintained there. You are basically there without a thought, without any kind of a strong ego, any perception, any disturbance. You are simply maintaining that. So that is so this kind of a Pasana related thing, you can come through at many different ways. It's not only the, say, Vedananupasana, it is not only the Dhatu Manasikara is the way. There are many methods available. So you can use that as the ground to turn into Vipassana. So you are now using Metta as the ground to turn into Vipassana, where you start observing thoughts and how they are transient, how they are coming and going, and then the mind automatically drops them. Mind doesn't want to involve with them, encourage them. And if there are any signs coming to your mind, any thought, any past memories coming to your mind, that's also not encouraged. Now you simply keep them aside and still maintaining that blank, empty state of the mind, spacious nature of the mind. That spacious nature of the mind is not extremely happy, rather it is more equanimous, isn't it? So it's a more equanimous. It's very much like the norm of the mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, Bhante.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, very Steve, Bhante.
Okay. So I think we have spent almost 1.5 hours. So then we'll wind up the session. Do you have any notices, Charlika?
Yes, Bhante. So we'll schedule our next one August 30th. And if anything changes, please let me know. And yeah, so I'll let our participants know. So just keep that 30th as our next meeting, August 30th. So thank you very much and much praise to you, Bhante. I wish you good health and a long life.
Okay.
Satnai.
Everyone, Sarnai.